Hello and welcome to another episode of Focus On. I'm Akin Obakeye. On this episode, we'll bring highlights from the Stanbic IBTC Gas and Infrastructure Conference held in Lagos. Now, the event had in attendance industry leaders from the private and public sectors, as well as regulators and stakeholders. Let's get highlights from the event. It's the Stanbic IBTC Gas and Infrastructure Conference. In attendance are industry leaders from the private and public sectors, as well as regulators and stakeholders, gathered to discuss the gas and infrastructure opportunities in Africa with a focus on Nigeria. According to the organizers, having these critical stakeholders in one room sets the stage to discuss the critical role of gas and infrastructure in Nigeria's economic growth. Wole Adeniyi, the chief executive of Stanbic IBTC Bank, speaks to the opportunities available in investing in Nigeria's gas value chain and how the bank is positioning to drive growth in Nigeria's energy space.
As the world transitions towards clean energy, Nigeria's abundant gas reserve presents a unique opportunity to bridge the energy gap while ensuring sustainability. Infrastructure, on the other hand, is the backbone of economic development, connecting industry, empowering communities, and fostering trade. At Stanbic IBTC, we recognize the transformative power of finance in development. Recently, we got an approval for a 350 billion infrastructure fund 2, and it's a testament to our commitment to driving growth in energy and infrastructure. The first 100 billion has been fully utilized, and then we raised additional 350 billion in infrastructure fund that has now been approved. However, true progress demands collaboration, innovation, and a shared purpose beyond individual efforts. I have some critical stakeholders here today, and to our regulators and government partners, we commend your effort in creating investment-friendly policies. These reforms are more than policies, they are blueprints for a future where gas-fueled industrialization and infrastructure drive inclusive prosperity. To our private sector stakeholders, Nigeria is ripe with opportunities. With over 200 million people, strategic geographical positioning, and untapped potential, our market is primed for ambitious and transformative investment. At Stanbic IBTC, we go beyond finance. We serve as a catalyst for economic change, committed to surpassing businesses in unlocking their full potential. We must acknowledge the challenges that we face: funding gap, regulatory complexities, and the need for technological advancement. However, these are not obstacles, they are opportunities to innovate. Blended finance models, public-private partnership, and digital infrastructure solutions provide pathways to overcoming these barriers and reshaping possibilities.
Keynote speaker Jobson Osiodion Owalefo, the Director General of the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, stresses the relevance of shaping Nigeria's infrastructure landscape to drive growth. He believes the Nigerian government is actively driving infrastructure development in the country.
Nigeria's gas sector holds significant potential for growth due to its large reserve and ongoing development in exploration and production technologies. There's still a need for more investment in infrastructure in this sector, such as pipeline, processing plants, and storage facilities, to fully realize Nigerian gas potential. The government is committed to leveraging private sector financing to achieve this goal, and I think that's one of the reasons we are gathered here today. Also, Nigeria is at a crucial junction in its journey towards national development, with immense potentials ahead. The government is committed to expanding infrastructure and fostering strategic partnership to achieve sustainable growth, recognizing that sustainable and modern infrastructure is a vital driver of economic and social development. The government is focused on ensuring investment in critical infrastructure that support long-term economic prosperity. To boldly address this infrastructure gap, the President of Nigeria today, His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, unveiled in 2024 an infrastructure plan that targets initial take-off fund of 20 trillion naira. The fund is targeted at closing Nigeria's $878 billion infrastructure gap by deploying as much as 35 billion yearly up to 2024.
The event switches gear with a panel session touching on key issues affecting investors, regulators, and more importantly, challenges inhibiting the growth of the gas ecosystem in Nigeria.
the enabling environment is being created to allow private sector investment to thrive. I'll give you an example, like my agency. One of the things we did when we came on board is to streamline all our processes down. That today it's easy for any investor that have finance to approach us and say, we have necessary finance, we're interested in this project. So what we do is that we go above just sitting down in our office and waiting for people to bring projects. If you have any good idea and you know you have necessary avenues to raise funds, if you approach ICRC, I don't wait for you. I step out on your behalf to meet necessary agency or minister responsible for that project, and we'll sit down and fashion a way whereby we can develop that project and take it to the market.
What gives investors and even operators like us some comfort is the fact that, these incentives are given with the intention that in future you will be able to get some of these tax benefits that you have been given. There needs to be that assurance that as you are investing today, when the time comes for you to claim those tax benefits, you will be able to.
There's a need to strengthen the regulatory environment, making it more transparent and efficient. Doctor has alluded to the fact that we had so many regulatory permits and approvals to obtain. Now, what it was that we just looked through all the laws of the Federation of Nigeria, and we came up with a list of 38 to 40 permits. In fact, some of them were just permits that were on the books. They didn't have any guidelines developed around that. So we had to work with the regulatory agencies to develop them and then get the applicable fees and begin to apply for them with the relevant documentation.
All over the continent, concessions is the way forward. I think it's been accepted that ports perform better when they're run by private sector. And part of the reason why private sector is interested in ports is, one, they're less risky. They can come in with 1 foot in the sea and 1 foot on land. They can take advantage of, the FX flows, and more importantly, they're important for the global trading routes. So you will see a lot of investment coming into ports, and it's important that as a continent we take advantage of that.
Dele Kuti, the head of Energy and Infrastructure Client Coverage at Standard Bank, speaks to why the bank is well positioned to lead this initiative and how much impact it will have on growth.
For us, growth is quite important, and at the back of that, driving growth is critical to us as a bank. It's part of our purpose, and energy and infrastructure clearly sit in that bucket as we continue to see how we kind of drive growth. The sector team that I continue to lead today for the bank, the executive has over 100 years of experience, not only in banking experience, but clearly structuring and delivering transactions. So we really, really pride ourselves in working with our clients to tailor solution and ensure that we can deliver to the business that they clearly want.
From Mozambique, South Africa, Namibia, Angola, Ghana, to name a few, how does Nigeria compare to these countries, and what opportunities lie ahead?
What are the dynamics of a successful gas market? If I look at somewhere like the US, for example, well, I have 7 different criteria I count. The first one is access to resources. Nigeria's got that. The second one is policy support. That's been mentioned by the panel. The third one is legislation. That's been mentioned by the panel. The fourth one is regulations. That's been mentioned by the panel. The fifth one is pricing. Over time, will Nigeria move more to an American-type model, a Henry Hub, or a TTF, where you have standardized domestic pricing? That can unlock contractual certainty and investment, but of course there's trade-offs. The sixth aspect is market. Are you going to have trading arrangements? Here I'm thinking Henry Hub again. Or are you going to have bilateral contracting? The two go together, pricing and markets. And it's an interesting way to increase your gas demand. And then the last point, and again, this has been a big theme of the panel we just heard, is infrastructure. How is the infrastructure going to be built out? So in the past, you only had one option, which was pipelines. but now virtual pipelines. The technology has come along. Small-scale LNG, or I must keep learning to call it mini LNG, CNG, among others. And then had a great conversation with the regulator this morning, marine bunkering. Africa, despite this being this enormous place on the map, it has lots of shipping traffic goes around the continent every day. It still doesn't have a single marine bunkering destination. Places like Singapore, Rotterdam do. The race is open for somewhere in Africa, and obviously it must be Nigeria, to be the first place for marine bunkering.
For some key industry players, such an event remains crucial to understanding the opportunities in the gas and infrastructure value chain.
There are two things that is going to drive industrialization in this country. One is gas, second is infrastructure. Both of them require infrastructure. One, we have the huge reserves, but with serious potential, but limited resources. So it's important for us to be able to bridge that gap. And that's one of the reasons why we thought it was important to ensure that the regulator was here. So we invited the DG, the ICRC, who is one of the people who is going to ensure that with public-private partnerships, we're able to drive that communication across to the industry. And remember, for you to be able to do this, one of the key words that came out of this conference is collaboration. We need the strategic enablers, we need the regulators, we need the investors, people like the Lekki Free Trade Zone and the Lekki Ports, who have invested actively into this country.
As you can imagine, Stanbic IBTC is well renowned and a proven partner to development of infrastructure in Nigeria. They've been involved with us since inception, and they've been very supportive in terms of funding, in terms of financial advisory services, and generally just being a partner in development. So these kind of events that they've established today are very important for us to remind ourselves of how important infrastructure is for the development of this country. Know that there's a gap, there's a deficit in infrastructure, and see how PPP can be enhanced and, made better structured to enable us partner with foreign investors for the greater good of the country. So it's very important that this happened today, and the panel discussions were very insightful and gave suggestions of how we can go forward.
I think this has provided the opportunity for the ICRC to tell investors that as a country we are open for business, to let people know that the government of today, the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GTFR, is creating the enabling platform that will make investors have the confidence to come to Nigeria and invest and make Nigeria an investment destination.
And that's all on this episode of Focus On. I'm Akin Obakeye. Until next time, it's bye for now.